Welcome, everyone, to episode 109 of the Indie Reds podcast. I'm your host, Joe Dilling. With me is Bryan Smith. Bryan, welcome.
Hey, Joe. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks, man. Great having you on. We've got some stuff to cover tonight. So we're going to start with Liverpool's trip to Norwich, Liverpool's trip to Madrid, and then we would be remiss if we didn't discuss Manchester City's UEFA ban. So let's jump on right in, Bryan, and start talking about Norwich. The lads come back from a much-needed and deserved break. Lots of big win predictions pre-match. I remember hearing things like 3-0, 4-0, 3-1, along those lines on some of the bigger podcasts. But it takes substitute Sadio Mane to finally beat Krul and the back line of Norwich. It was super windy, so I think that had a little bit to do with it. Took a little bit out of our game. But let's just start off with the lineup. Bryan, no Sadio Mane or Fabinho starting, as a lot of people thought. So was this kind of what you expected, or was this a big surprise?
I don't think it was a huge surprise necessarily. I mean, Fabinho coming back and Mane coming back from injury, with Atletico looming 72 hours later, I can see why they both didn't start. So Klopp picked Naby in the midfield and picks Ox up front and replace those two guys. So those are pretty good picks. Norwich bottom of the table, which probably is what prompted a lot of those domination prediction score lines that we saw out there. Didn't turn out that way, but the lineup, at first glance when we were at UJ's, it was about what we expected. I can see why Mane and Fabinho didn't start, but Naby and Ox were the two replacements. What do you think about those guys or the lineup in general?
Yeah, I really thought we were going to get Fabinho, but I remember listening to The Weekender, and Gibbo just kind of was like, hey, I came up with this on the spot, but this really makes sense. He's like, especially with what you said too, with Madrid being so close afterwards, and those guys not being 100% fit, you don't really want to start them, because if they're not 100%, you want them to be closer. And they both could have used a really good run out. So I think that the 30 minutes that they got, because they both did come on right about 60 minutes, maybe Fabinho a little bit later, but Sadio Mane came on and he was ready to go. And we'll get to him in a minute, but I really think it was probably the right call. Hindsight's 2020, and maybe we don't think it's the right call now, but I think he was in good. They were both in good shape for the match yesterday with Atletico. So I think it was probably the right call. And who am I to question Klopp, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
sorry. All right.
I can't remember if Bobak got his traditional text from Klopp about the lineup or not, but yeah, nothing too crazy with the lineup, and we're ready to go against bottom of the table Norwich.
So we're gonna do it a little differently tonight. We're going to We're going to go through the lineup and talk about individual performances. I think it's a good one to do with this match, especially with the way that the kind of win it was. It was just 1-0. And I think maybe some of the players looked a little rusty, and we can maybe identify them a little bit, and maybe we'll have some debate. So, Bryan, let's start at the back. Alisson Becker, what'd you think of his performance?
I thought he was fine. I mean, Norwich certainly didn't ask a whole lot of him. I mean, they had just the one shot on target I saw, and that came really, really late from Pukki, and he made a good save there. We had a lot of the ball. They didn't have a whole lot of shots, and Alisson makes even difficult saves look easy, and maybe we'll get to one in particular that got a lot of attention that I didn't think was too spectacular, which I'm probably in the minority there. But Alisson was solid. He's just so damn good, and other than the only thing he did wrong was put the ball down and let the wind blow it when he was trying to take a goal kick. It's pretty much the only thing that went wrong for him the whole game.
Ridiculous how strong that wind was. It was amazing. I agree with you. I thought Alisson, actually, I maybe disagree a little bit. I thought Alisson was fabulous. That save he had, Bryan, it might just be flash, but it had me just like yelling from excitement. That was a hell of a save. Granted, the first striker was surprised that he wasn't offside, and didn't know what to do. Tries to square the ball to Pukki, but Alisson's like there and says, "No, not happening," and it swats the ball away as he goes down. Did everything right, made himself big. actually kind of big enough to scare the attacker. Let's just call him the attacker because I forget his name, and I know it wasn't Pookie. So I thought Alison Becker was great. I almost want to give him one of the men of the match. That's how strong a performance I thought he had.
Yeah, I can't remember that particular attacker either. It might have been Rupp. Their number 7, I think, is who it was. But he knew where he was. He was. I guess he thought he might have been offside because he doesn't really know where the left side of our defense is. But it was a good ball through. It was close.
It was close. Yeah.
He had Robinson. He had Robinson outside of him, if I remember correctly. But the only reason that Allison was able to make that excellent save was the layoff they tried to play out to Pookie was terrible.
Yeah,
not enough weight on the ball, and not a very good angle, and now he still a great play by Allison to get out there and get his big right hand out there and stretch and get there and swat it away. But any ball that's even halfway decent from Rupp there, and it's 1-0, and unfortunately he didn't get enough on it or didn't get the right angle on it, and Allison swats it away.
Moving on to Trent.
But a better pass is it's an easy goal.
That's fair. Moving on to Trent, I'll start. I wasn't that impressed with Trent in this match. Maybe I missed something along the way, but I think he was really minimized because a lot of his game is making those great in-swinging passes, corner kicks, and the wind just was tearing him up. I mean, his passes were off. It would die right at the wrong time or something like that. I thought it was a bad day at the game, but I don't think he played badly. I think it was more of the wind affected his play too much, and it affected the whole team in that regard. Because if you think about it, we play a lot of that over the top ball, even from Virgil or Joe, and that was limited too because of the wind. Brian, what do you think about Trent?
Yeah, you're right. Not his best performance. A couple of early balls kind of went crazy, but the wind. It was hard to really tell just watching the match at the pub. I mean, you can't really hear the commentators as well as you can at home, and they quit or they cut to a shot of the flags every once in a while, and you can see him whipping around. But it definitely affected some of his crosses, affected passes and long balls and anything that wasn't along the ground. Affected that for both teams, and Trent wasn't spectacular, but he was okay. There certainly didn't get beat a whole lot on the defensive end, which is sometimes. People point that out as maybe the one minor flaw in his game, but Norwich wasn't really going after him. They really weren't going after anybody at all.
No, they weren't.
In the first half. Hell, we had the ball the whole time.
I'm going to lump the next two together, Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk. I thought they both had pretty solid games. Nothing really to write home about. Nothing really to knock them against. There is one thing to talk about with Virgil, but I'll let you break it if you want. Brian,
with Virgil and Joe?
Virgil getting hauled down, what do you think? Do you think that was a penalty, or do you want to stick with that? He was not going to get the ball anyway, so good non-call.
Which one are you talking about?
Virgil's it's a corner, and Virgil's he's making a run, and they tackle him twice. Two players tackle him, and I know Pookie's there from the replay. VAR doesn't even look at it.
I don't think it was a penalty. No. What do you think?
I think I'm going to go back to what you were saying. Is it playable? Or last time, I don't know if they're going to play it to him, but come on, seriously, it was a bad week for VAR. If you want to talk about the Manchester United Chelsea game as well, as we've all seen, but bad weekend for VAR. But I think. One of the things that they've been trying to knock back on is the shirt pulling and the grabbing and the holding, and to let that go and not even have VAR look at it, that's the thing that really upset me, I think, the most. Bobby's was a little bit more questionable. This one, I mean, there are two arms around him pulling him down. Virgil's calling for the ball when he's at the top of the box, and yeah, it just. I think it is. I think if they want to be legitimate, they need to make that call. But we're going to win some, we're going to lose some. I think we're -2 on on VAR calls this season as a whole. So
yeah, like a goal difference. Yes.
Yeah, it's not that big.
Yeah.
I mean, we won. I think I'd be more upset if we didn't, or we got a draw, or something along those lines. But I'll just say it is what it is.
That's fair. That's fair. Now I'll admit I watched the game at the pub and haven't watched the whole game back yet. So forgive me for making you describe that to me. But that kind of is part of my answer too. I wasn't immediately didn't come to mind which possible penalty you were talking about. So I don't know what the announcers were saying about it. I don't remember the incident as well as maybe if I had watched the match back or watched it at home. But yeah, I only saw the highlights of Chelsea United. So the one dude was offsides, but Harry Maguire, performing a vasectomy on the touchline there with his bottom of his foot, that's a problem. But
yeah,
VAR in this league isn't going to necessarily reverse any one of those decisions. And I think the difference here might be that we don't have in the Premier League the match official going over to a monitor to view what's going on and making a decision. We have
I thought they were asked
match
to do
official
that, though.
talking in his ear to another guy who's looking at the screen. The other guy's asking the referee, "What did you see, not see?" Presumably they're having some type of communications on some instances, and then another person is deciding. That's just not the right way to do this.
See, I thought they did, though. I thought they came out running the first of the year and were encouraging the officials to go look at the booth, go look at the sideline monitor. They have one there for a reason. They should have gone and looked at it. Exactly, but they were encouraged to. So anyway,
okay, well, I encourage Jennifer to do lots of things. And it doesn't always work.
All right, we'll leave that one there. All right, Brian. So Andy Robertson's been admittedly playing through pain, hasn't been 100%. Jurgen Klopp said, "Hey, you know what? As a player, I can't tell you the last time I played without pain." So, it's kind of part of the game, and I think that everybody was kind of accepting it. I think it was good for Robbo to get a break. I thought he looked better than he has been in this match, considering the fact that he couldn't really get a lot of his crosses in with the wind. But I thought he had a pretty decent match. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think so too. I had not heard anything about this, pain situation, and it is part of the game, as you said. And he plays a lot of matches. We have probably less. Well, I think we do have less cover at left back than we do in any other position on the field. Heck, even Adrian's a better backup for Allison than what we have for Robbo, if you ask me. And I'm a Milner fan.
Yeah.
But he was good. He was dynamic. He's cutting inside. Trying to play some good balls in. I thought he was crossing the ball a little bit better than Trent. Trent probably tried a few more. I looked it up earlier. The number of clearances, like on the official Premier League stats. Norwich had 33 clearances.
Ridiculous.
Which now that's not all just long balls whipped in and headed clearances. I mean, there's lots of things that count. As technically as a clearance, I'm sure. I don't think we really need to dig too deep into that. But we put their back line under pressure. They were defending deep, and we had a lot of the ball, and whipping balls in was tough for sure. But generally speaking, Robbo was pretty good and linked up well with the midfield. And even though the midfield was struggling at times, especially in the first half, Robbo was his usual self. He was all over the place.
Moving to midfield, what do you think about Jordan Henderson?
I think he was the worst of our three midfielders, in my opinion. He's been getting a lot of accolades lately, and I just don't think he was particularly good. He did play a couple of nice balls in the second half forward, and had some chances, and I think he played that one ball to Salah for that really good chance on that header, if I remember correctly. I think that was from Hendo. So, not a bad match, but not a great match in my opinion either. But I could be wrong. What do you think about Hendo? I know he's been getting a lot of praise lately.
I think he got a lot of non-flash because he was playing the six. But let's put it this way. Jordan Henderson steps up at times. There were some times he was just getting frustrated. You could just see he was getting frustrated that we weren't getting into the box. And I just remember one time in particular, he just surges forward. I mean, sprints forward, intercept the pass, and just keeps going. And then it might be that one that you were talking about with that great play into Salah. So I thought he had a good match. I wouldn't go and say he had a bad match. I'd just say it was he did what he needed to do. Like if 6 is the standard for a good game, then I'd give him a 6. Kind of thing. I thought he had a decent game. What about
maybe a 6, maybe a 6.5 because he had some dangerous moments in the second half. But I'm with you. I mean, the people that what I would call a 6.5. You see YouTubers outside Anfield giving people 8s and 9s. I just think that's completely silly. Everybody gets overrated. 5 minutes after the match when there's 50 people around, Pajak screaming and yelling and singing songs. But
I love him.
No, absolutely, I do too. But anyway, Hendo was okay. But we've got 2 other midfielders to talk about too, right?
Yeah. How about Ginny, man?
He's just his usual self. He's tough on the ball. He controls it, a good close control, strong. He wasn't as dangerous getting forward as he is sometimes. And I think having Fabinho out there allows. Of course, Fabinho didn't call in the second half. Excuse me, Hendo and Gini and Naby. Naby was the guy who was going to get a little bit more forward. So I think Klopp was probably asking Hendo and Gini to stay a little bit deeper and kind of let Naby do his thing. So, Gini for me was a little bit like Hendo. Nothing spectacular. Certainly didn't hurt us in the defensive end. Had a couple of good moments, but certainly wasn't a star. I'd put him in the same category as Hendo, I think. What do you think about Gini's performance?
Yeah, same exactly. Can't remember anything spectacular that he did in the match. Just a good put out performance. Don't let him score. Try to play balls forward when you can. Kind of thing. So, just an average performance. I agree with the Hendo assessment. Naby Keita playing on the right side for the most part. A lot more link up play with Mohamed Salah. I thought Naby had a pretty strong game. Things just weren't working for him. And it was kind of as we start to move towards the front 3 as well. A lot of this stuff just wasn't coming off. I hold it more to the defense of Norwich just selling out to make a play. What I mean by that, if you're not familiar with the phrase, is it's all or nothing. They're either going to make that last ditch tip to knock the ball away, or they're going to get burned. And it was just coming off for him. It seemed like every single one of these passes, we were like one pass away. It was the final pass into the shooter that had space, and they were just selling out, and it was working for him. But I thought Naby was dangerous, not in a shooting aspect, but definitely in setting up the front 3. What'd you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think that's a good call. First of all, with Atletico looming, we needed him to play a full match, and allow Fabinho not to be out there for too long, and maybe take a little bit of the workload off of Gini and Hendo's shoulders, especially getting forward. So, and he did that. Had that really good chance after that ridiculous double save that a lot of people were yelling at him at the pub that he should have put that away. It actually wasn't a bad finish. It was a really good save. He could have went side netting there, and I'm sure he, wishes that he had, just like we all do. But he no other midfielder on the pitch is even going to get into that position to do that, to try to put in that rebound. So overall, he was good. He had a nice hard shot as well that was a little bit central and a decent save, from the top of the box on a good late run that he's trying to thump one home. So, I like Naby a lot. I like when he gets forward. He's dynamic. He's good in open spaces. He's probably our best dribbling midfielder that we have as far as going around somebody. And he's also good at pressing and breaking up play and winning balls and kind of being sneaky a little bit like Firmino does, although doesn't quite get the attention for it. Doesn't play as much, I guess, as Bobby. But generally speaking, I thought Naby was good, and I thought he was our best midfielder on the day.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in for Mane. Kind of quiet for me, at least. I didn't really see anything. There wasn't anything that really stuck out to me. I think he was just in there getting some minutes. Good for him to get minutes. We need those players subbed off for Mane, and we'll talk about Mane in a few players. But Brian, what did you think about Ox?
Yeah, he was just okay. Not a good game. He looked rusty. It looked like he'd been on a winter break, maybe more than anybody else. So I'm not sure exactly what he was doing, but
he was.
I don't remember seeing much news about him. Did he go anywhere?
Yeah, Jenny, and Verge were in Dubai.
Okay, I didn't know he was with them.
Yep.
I guess maybe I do remember seeing a picture or two. I don't. I mean, I don't actively go out and search stuff, as far as where
It
they're
was it
going, but
was
you
on
see things that
Instagram.
pop up. I'd forgotten that he was with them, but he hasn't had a really good match in his last couple starts or last couple of appearances. So, it's way too early to say he's slumping or write him off or anything like that. These things happen over the course of a match and a half, here and there. So not a great performance, not particularly dangerous in my mind, and the weakest of our front player, I think. So, or front three for sure.
All right, Bobby. What about-
Definitely like a 6, something like that.
Okay, what about Bobby?
But Bobby, boy, that one glaring miss late was kind of surprised me. I know that ball just was whipped into him, and he got his left foot onto it. He really should have put that away. But
Yeah.
Bobby's Bobby. I mean, he's all over the place, and winning balls and harassing their back line, and didn't have a whole lot of chances. Part of that, it was the way that Norwich played and the way the wind was affecting things and the service he was being provided. But, not an incredible performance, but just another solid, Bobby everywhere and popping up all over the place. He really came deep a lot in the second half to get involved and to be an outlet for our midfielders to get the ball forward to him and linking up with others. A couple of really nice first touches, and one in particular was almost a ridiculous goal. That long ball, he kind of flicks it over his own shoulder with the outside of his right boot, and then almost whatever it was, almost volleys it in.
Yeah.
That would have been certainly would have won goal of the month.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if it's necessarily goal of the season, but it was ridiculously good. And he's the only guy on our team that can really do that 2-footed like that. I suppose Mane could, because Mane's got a hell of a left foot, and we'll get to that. But Bobby was Bobby. I thought he was good, but it wasn't his best performance of the year. But really, nobody had that. What'd you think of Firmino?
I loved him. I loved him in this match. He doesn't score. I get it. He had that late sitter he missed. I think it was a lot harder.
Calling that sitters that's tough.
Yeah,
that ball was
what I'm
ripped
at.
across.
That's what I'm getting.
Don't mean to jump on you there, but he's inside the 6-yard box, and there's no goalkeeper involved. So
yeah, the defense. I think he was expecting the defensive player to get at least something to it and knock it out of his way. That's a ball we expect Bobby to finish. Is really what it comes down to. Yeah, that expected finish or whatever that stat is. But other than that, I thought he had a good game. I thought he had a real good game, actually. I think I had him up there for man of the match in my regard. I'm probably going to – you already told me why I was wrong, but
well, I might have understated his performance a bit. I mean, I watched it once and had some things going on after the match as well, as we all sat around and chatted a few things, and there's plastic airplanes flying through the air too. So, there was things happening, and maybe I missed a little bit of Bobby. So maybe you're right. Maybe he is man of the match.
I thought he had. Well, he was out there working his hardest, and you could see it. And that goal that he almost comes away with, that you talked about, where he flips it up and volleys it on a turn, just ridiculous. He's about ready to pull it off, but a Norwich player gets in the way. Just times it just right, because he was about ready to murder that ball into the net, and they were gonna in a completely different game at that point.
It was very well defended, because he got a boot onto that and knocked it away. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like Bobby only got a piece of it and put it over, nothing like that. I mean, that was just very well defended to just knock that away from him. So. All right, so Bobby's in the man of the match shout, but Salah's up next. What did you think of Salah's game?
I thought Mo Salah played well. I thought he played well. Just kind of an average match for him. He had some opportunities. That one, the double save. I'm going to put that as. I'm going to say Kroll made a hell of a save, at least the first part of it, because Mo Salah's coming out and just
absolutely,
and he should finish that any single day of the week. Finishes it 99 times out of 100. Kroll just with an amazing save. And then he follows it up with a great save on Navi crashing the box. But I thought Salah had a pretty good game, not like anything spectacular. He scores 2, and then he's in a spectacular performance. But I think a lot of it has to go with service again. The service coming in was tough, and I'm going with the wind. I mean, I don't think it was even just a straight one-directional wind. I thought it was kind of swirling, too, as I would watch the flags on the corner flags. It was kind of changing direction. I just had to make it tough on Robbo and Trent, or even Virgil when they're playing it up from the back. So that's kind of me on Salah. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he was dangerous. A great turn on that shot you were talking about that Kroll saved, and then Nabby couldn't follow the rebound. I mean, that looks like Salah from a couple of years ago, just crowded in the box and just a quick little turn and drags it back with his right foot and beats three guys in an instant and gets off a quick shot. If I remember right, that was kind of a hard, low, right-footed shot, towards the far post. It ended up being a really good save. So, yeah, Salah was good. A few more chances or half chances, and he may end up with a couple goals that day. And we're just talking about an easy victory, but it didn't happen that way. And, although Salah was solid and dangerous, but didn't quite show up on the scoreboard.
All right, moving on to the substitutes, since they both got about 30 minutes. So we'll start with Fabinho. Did he do anything to really stand out for you, or just a good run out for him?
I think just kind of a good run out. I was glad that he came on when he did to get the amount of minutes that he ended up getting. So I thought that was important. So he came on for Genie in the 60th minute, so he got a good half an hour of play there, which was really good to see, and we need that from him. And I don't think he was particularly fantastic. I don't think he really changed the way we played. Allowed Nabby to go a little bit further forward and maybe freed up Henderson to do a little bit more, knowing, how great would it be to play in a midfield where, Fabinho's behind you or next to you?
Yeah.
It's just fantastic. And one thing I did notice is we saw him drop deep in between the two center backs, a little bit like Gerrard used to do, a little bit like Hendo does sometimes. But when both fullbacks, are pushed way up the field and we drop that center defensive mid, and in possession, kind of we're building slowly and kind of playing is not really as a back three, but the deepest of all the midfielders. He's good at that, and he's physical, he's strong, he's good in a tackle. He's and it's hard not just to love the guy. So half an hour maybe not enough to make a big impact, and it didn't really necessarily change the way we played entirely. But very happy to see him get out there and play 30 minutes unscathed and get ready for the next match. So. What do you think about Fabinho's performance? Anything I missed there, or anything that stood out to you that maybe I don't recall?
Yeah, I think you'd hit the nail on the head. But you did say one thing: 30 minutes, not a lot of time to make an impact. But we did get one player that sure made an impact in 30 minutes. Sadio Mane comes on. He ends up scoring a winner, a fabulous goal in my opinion. I thought Mane was lively the moment he stepped on the pitch. He was like that impact sub that we need at times. Things were kind of stale. I'm not saying the guys were looking like maybe they were gonna get just a draw, and Sadio Mane comes on, sparks it, and it ends up getting a goal for the winner. Brian, Sadio Mane is man of the match. Let's just put it that way. Bobby played longer. That's kind of why I was going there too. I thought Bobby played really well. But what did you think about Sadio Mane?
Well, he wins the match for us. You're right. We were calling for, Sadio to come on for Ox at halftime, or even maybe after a half an hour or 35 minutes. We're thinking, okay, Sadio for Ox, do it at halftime, and we kind of at the pub we're calling for that. Turns out we were a little bit early, but he comes on and he immediately just starts to take control of his side of the field, and whenever he's in possession of the ball, he's trying to. Just able to do so many more things than what Ox was able to pull off that day. So, he ends up winning the match for us. It was a hell of a goal. There's a reason he has, what is it? I think it's a 4-star weak foot on FIFA. For those of you that play FIFA, it probably should even be in a 4.5. This dude's right-footed, but he's got one of the best left foots of any right-footed, front player in the league. He's fast, he's physical. He doesn't shy away from anything, and hell, what a finish! What a finish! There's nothing the goalkeeper can do about that. He's in the right position, and Sadio just thumps it past him near post, and just a hell of a goal.
Yeah, it was amazing watching that, and awesome. One thing that I'm just gonna pick on Mane, I guess, for a second, but one of the things that drives me nuts is a lot of the times I feel like he plays.
You say his hairline, I'm gonna come get you
because I don't have one.
All right, you're envious of his hairline.
I think, especially when he's out on the wing, sometimes I feel like he takes too heavy of a first touch. But I think he does that because he knows he has the speed to close it down, and and get position in behind the defender. I don't know. It just sometimes it just bothers me because you want to see your a lot of times, at least I do, you want to see them receive the ball and then do that first touch to put him in to set him up for the next one. And that's what he's doing. It just seems really heavy to me at times. But it seems to work for him, and I think he's just relying on his speed a lot. So don't want to be around when he loses that step, because it happens to everybody.
If you compare him to what Mo does on the other side, which is tons of tiny little touches and incredible close control, even at full speed, he's the ball's just glued to his foot. And Mane on the other side, I think Mane, I think you're onto something. He'll play what looks to be like a heavy touch or maybe a dribble that's a little bit further out than what you expect. And who am I to say a guy with his kind of speed shouldn't be doing that, right? But it's sometimes it does seem like he's trying to get a defender to think twice or consider coming after a ball for a tackle, what he thinks is going to be 50-50, and then by the time he gets there, Mane's completely done something different, and some of those don't look right, and some of those don't always come off, but in this particular case, he had a hell of a first touch on this goal. Now, this goal wasn't without controversy for sure.
Oh, geez.
I mean, the hat pull for winning and those of you that don't know, sometimes we'll play a little game at Union Jack where you throw a buck into a hat and you pull a name out. And if the guy, the name that you pull out scores the first goal, then you just, you win the money's in the pot. So, and one of them was always, a Liverpool player on the bench or substitutions or, whatever. I paid out the money, and then I look up and VAR's happening, and I'm thinking, oh shit, so I'd already given the money away, and then VAR's happening, and it was a little kid that ended up winning it, which was great to watch. She'd driven all the way down from Kokomo with her dad. I'll just maybe leave it at that. And the money's sitting over there, and I look up and it's VAR, and I'm thinking, oh shit. So it was a controversial goal for a second. What do you think?
Man, Lee Dixon's a complete idiot. He on NBC, he's sitting there saying that Mane fouled him. Mane doesn't even touch him. The defender that he's behind. He go completely ludicrous. I mean, watching back numerous times, especially just to celebrate how physically gifted and amazing of a touch that was. To even consider that Mane touches him, he doesn't. The guy sells out and misses and completely is off balance. And Mane's not even close to touch him. He's at least good there's a foot between the end of his arm and where the guy's at. So, Brian, what do you think, man?
Oh, he absolutely touches him.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I'm not talking about if it's a foul or not yet. I'm saying, yes, he absolutely touched him. In fact, I think first of all, VAR got this right. It's not a foul.
The one that is goal side or the one that's opposite goal side?
No, the one he touches, the guy that jumps up to tries to head the ball. Mane puts his kind of the back of his wrist and kind of top edge of his forearm where it meets the wrist on the guy, and there's a little bit of a nudge there.
All right. But
the guy jumps up off his left foot to try to head this ball, right after this tiny little touch happens, and the guy's beaten by the pace and the maybe the wind and the flight of the ball, and so he jumps up off of his left foot. He kind of twists around to try to head it and lands on his left foot again. I mean, it certainly is no freaking Russian ballet, that's for damn sure. It was very, very badly played, and Mane does touch him, but I don't think it's a foul, and that's why VAR allowed the goal to stand. But I do think where the referee was at, if for whatever reason the defender was in between the referee and Mane, and he doesn't see kind of how much of a push there is, the way this player reacts, he may end up getting this call. And because it looks like a foul if you don't see what Mane's hand is doing. Obviously, VAR can see the extent of the touch, and it was very, very minor, and certainly wasn't a forceful enough push to cause this defender to do what he did as he spun around and flailed everywhere. So that's why the goal was given, in my opinion. But it's something that should be looked at, and I got no problem looking at it. And thankfully, I didn't have to take any money back from a little kid. I'd already decided I was going to let her keep it if the goal was taken away, and I don't think anybody would have had a problem with that. But yeah, it was a touch, but not a foul.
I'm looking at it right now. Henderson, by the way,
Okay.
Henderson with the assist on there, so maybe we underrated Henderson performance for that, especially with over the top. So I'm watching him back right here. All right, so let's see. Henderson has the ball in the center circle. Nice
it's the second or third replay angle that really.
I saw the first
what
replay.
VAR
he puts his arm up to just touches the shoulder, but it's very light touch. I think it was more of like a spacing kind of thing. So
absolutely, it's kind of jockeying for position kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Complete crap. I don't think the defender even went down because he felt there was contact. I think he went down because he was off balance.
Because he played it so badly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
He felt a little bit of contact, and he played it badly, so he fell over.
All right. So Norwich they look to go down, which is a bummer because I think that they have a pretty decent team, and I like their coach. I really hope they don't can him for dropping down. I think Norwich could probably bounce back up the next year if they don't lose everybody. But speaking of losing people, are there any players that you think LFC could consider? I'll start. I think Cantwell definitely has a Premier League future. I think he would play pretty well on our side too, with the way that he plays in that midfield. But again, it'd be one of those things of where does he play? Where does he get playing time?
When does he play? Where and when? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Because I don't think we're losing anybody. I just don't think we're losing anybody this summer. Maybe Ginny. I don't know if that deal's done yet.
Well, Lallana, that's gained a little bit of momentum today. It's almost official, I guess.
Well, okay. To where?
To another team. Actually, I heard Leicester was interested today. Now, I don't know if there's any truth to that whatsoever. I'm not a big transfer rumor guy, and I didn't even look at the source, but I saw some tweets about it, and I'm. That's how interested I am in even looking it up at this point. I didn't even look at where it was coming from because some of it's crap. But if Shaq goes and Lallana goes, maybe Cantwell is a guy that you would consider. I've had him on a fantasy team. He doesn't really score much, or I've gotten better players than him, so I don't have to really worry about him too much. But I have followed him a little bit. He's interesting. He's dynamic. He plays in a couple different positions. He kind of reminds me of a Yossi Benayoun type, or maybe a Dirk Kuyt type. Just a quicker than he looks and technically sound and kind of hardworking. So we would have to lose a couple of players for him to get in consideration and get a spot on this team. But he wouldn't play a whole lot. So I don't think we're going to go for him. I can see him going to maybe a team like Southampton or Wolves, or even an Everton or something like that. Maybe mid-table United, something like that, since we can call them mid-table now. even though those first other examples I gave are probably more likely. I don't think he's necessarily good enough for us.
All right. Okay, so Atletico Madrid, moving on. Brian, I tried watching on TNT, streaming it while I was working, and let's just face the facts, guys. We'll call a spade a spade. TNT was not set up for this kind of streaming. Their servers suck. They are terrible for it, and I couldn't get in. And when I did get it, I could hardly get in, and when I did, it froze, and I was done. So I switched over after the goal and listened to our good friend Steve. So most of my breakdown will be on what I heard from Steve. So
Steve, is that the bartender at UJ or the Noodles and Company server, or which about? Steve is this?
LFC TV Steve.
The official LFC audio, which, if you don't know, is free for just about every single match. I think it's very rare that it's not. You can listen to that for free on LFC's official website. So he's good. He's really good. So you're listening to our old friend Steve, huh?
Yeah, I forget who he had with him. Another homer.
They'll rotate ex-players or sometimes even legends. John Aldridge is on there for the big games.
I love Aldo.
And Aldo does a good job of being a big LFC supporter on those broadcasts and plenty of screaming and yelling at the referee, and then that's always fun. But yeah. So TNT, you're talking about their website and their streaming, trying to watch
through the app
video of
through the app on my tablet while I was working, just to have it up and kind of glance at every now and then, because I was actually working.
Yes, working very hard and not paying attention to the video that's frozen at all. In fact, you probably didn't even know it was frozen, did you? Because you weren't even watching it because you were working so hard.
I couldn't get the sound to work. That's how I knew. So anywho, from the sound of the match, it seemed, seeing the goal, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, I don't think. But seeing the goal, it just was like we weren't ready for the match. Like, I don't know how I can really say it. We start slow sometimes, and I think it was we started slow. It was just a kind of a misplay by our boy Fabinho. He hits the ball wrong, so it's a deflection. Offsides wouldn't have counted, but Virgil had his foot was playing on Saul, and they were even surprised to get the ball. And Alsenbecker, there was nothing he could do about it. And that's pretty much the goal. I mean, Brian, am I looking at it differently than what you saw?
Well, looking back at it, I mean, first of all, I just was at work and had a situation I couldn't get out of, so I recorded it and watched it when I was at home. And sometimes there's meetings and you can get out of those, but when you're the person leading the meeting for 3.5 hours and speaking for more than 3 hours of it, it's I can't exactly be listening to Steve or having a stream playing or anything like that. But so I watched when I got home, and so I had the pleasure, in this case, the disgust of not just only watching the replay, but kind of rewinding it and watching it again and looking at it again. A couple of glances in, I noticed that, and I could be wrong here, maybe listeners could hit us up on some social media or what have you, but the zonal marking thing, which we do all the time, we had kind of Virgil at the far post and Gomez essentially at the near post, kind of on the 6-yard box or maybe just out the 6-yard box, even with the two goal posts, right? Near post, far post. Firmino's the guy in the middle, which struck me as strange. I don't recall seeing that. He's good in the air. He's tall. He's physical. He's not afraid of contact. I mean, I get that. But it was strange to have him in the middle there. And Bobby kind of whiffs on this header a little bit. I know there's bodies flying everywhere and the ball's flying in, but he kind of whiffs that header and bounces badly off of Fabinho. Unluckily, there's not really much Fabinho can do about it, and falls to their guy, and he kind of slots it home. So that struck me as strange that maybe Firmino was in the middle, and I either haven't noticed that, so shame on me, but that looks kind of different to me. The other thing that bugged me about this goal, did you notice before that they had a cross whipped in, and it kind of went off one of their guys' heads and out the far side for a throw in, and I think it was Mane over on that side. They could have chased it down, and he kind of let it go, and they gave the throw in to Atletico, which led to a corner, which led to the goal. So prior to that, I think the referee missed that, and it should have been a throw into us. And in hindsight, it sounds like I'm bitching here, but I think the referee messed that call up. It should have been our ball.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I'm unhappy with the refereeing in this match. I'm not going to blame them
terrible.
for the loss. I thought it was terrible. People saying it might have been in the little bit I was getting from other people, but these guys I don't know if this was their first UEFA Champions League match, but they sounded like they just
the referee
came straight up from Poland, the Polish league.
Well, I looked some information up on him, and I saw a few pieces of information. He refereed Slavia Prague and Inter in the group stages back in November, and he's done the European Championships as well, and Champions League group stage Napoli and Salzburg in our group back in November. So, and actually the European Championship I think was a qualifier because it was back in 2019 as well. So he's done lately 1, 2, 3, 4. This was his 5th Champions League match in the year 2019. So, and now into 2020. So he's done a few before.
And Brian, I'm not somebody to blame officiating for losing a match. I thought we lost.
You're right. You don't do that.
because
That's correct.
We didn't finish. We didn't finish our opportunities when we had them. and maybe there were some tactical adjustments that could have been made. I mean, hindsight's 2020, kind of stuff. But I think I put more. All right, so we are definitely to blame for losing. We should have we were the better team, I think, especially in the second half, except for finishing. But I'm really disappointed in Atletico and the way that they played this match. Gamesmanship.
I'm with you, but I've got something else on this referee. If you want it,
go for it.
Sorry, but
nope,
and we're not one to blame referees, and in fact, I don't think you ever do that. So
I have once
this guy
twice,
does come from the Polish league. We mentioned a couple Champions League games and some European Championship qualifiers. So I would say he's experienced, not just outside the Polish league. Maybe not one of the best referees in the world, of course, but so the last 23 games that he's done, this is going back to kind of summer, July 2019 when the Polish league started. So 23 matches, okay? This guy's card happy. How many cards do you think he's handed out in both Polish league and European qualifiers and Champions League in the last 23 matches?
50.
111.
Jeez.
In 23 matches. That does not include this particular game that we just played. And these are all the games, prior to that. 111 cards in 23 matches. I mean, there's his last league games, 5 yellow cards, 6 yellow cards. One before that was 8 yellows and a red. And one before that was 7 yellows. One before that was 6. Before that was 3, 5, 4, 6, 3, 3, 7.
Wow. 6
and a red, 4, 5, 2, 10 yellow cards and a red. I mean, this guy's a card-happy maniac.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just, his name's Simon Marciniak.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Mignolet.
Well, it's spelled S-Z as in zebra, S-Z-Y-M-O-N. I'm pronouncing it Simon, and I'm sure I'm wrong about that. But I'm going with Simon. Simon the card-happy maniac. That's what we're calling him.
Brian, so I kind of mentioned it earlier. I was really upset with the way I think Klopp was as well, and the way that Atletico played this match, flopping, trying to get people sent off. They the ref buying it. Sadio Mane, from the least the sounds of it, doesn't do anything and ends up getting a yellow card in the match. He subbed off at half. I think that played a big part of it because they were aiming towards him. They know he's got a little bit of a temper and he's a little bit loose with his arms, flopping all over the place though and rolling around. Diego Simeone even acting that way as well. Just completely frustrating match, and they're getting away with it at home. We applaud it when it's us, but hearing that ball goes out into touch and the ball boy is specifically holding onto the ball, Alison Becker's asking for it, and the fans are telling the kid to hold on to it, and he won't give them the ball. Those kind of things, time wasting. Granted, we applaud it when it's our kid, or if he's very fast with it when we get the ball. But these things, Brian, I used to appreciate Simeone, and I respected Atletico a lot, but I kind of lost a little bit after this match. What do you think about the whole way Atletico played?
I lost a ton of respect or admiration or whatever you want to call it for Simeone. And the ball boy thing. I mean, my son's ball boyed at our local professional team here and asked a ball boy in front of the supporter section because he usually stands in there with us. And, and I think one was maybe 12 when he did this or something like that. And one of the person that's organizing the ball boys asked him, when he volunteered to go in front of that section, because there's some language and, it's perfectly fine to ask. And he says, "Oh yeah, I'm a season ticket holder in there. It's fine." And the guy's like, "Okay, well, what do you do if we're winning, 1-0 and there's, 4 or 5 minutes to go?" And he said, "Well, if I can delay it for 10 seconds before I give them the other keeper the ball for the goal kick, I'll do it. But if it's our corner, I'm getting it out there fast." And the guy's like, "Okay, you got it." And Owen plays at a decent level anyway, so he kind of understands how that works. So that ball boy thing happens in Division II in the United States. So it's certainly going to happen in the Champions League at Atletico. So, but Simeone, I mean, regardless of the nonsense he said about the bus welcoming, which is just completely absurd, I got so in after 20 minutes, I was tired of him running around on the sidelines and then cutting to him on the sidelines, waving his arms in the air like a complete maniac, trying to get the crowd going. He looked like a freaking middle school hype man trying to get the student section going for the 8th grade against teachers' end of the season volleyball game. Just waving his arms around like a complete buffoon 500 or 600 times. It just that annoyed me more so than Madrid's tactics and constantly yelling at the referee, try to get more cards and trying to get Mane sent off, in the first half for another elbow, this, that, and the other. I'm so glad that we don't have to watch a team play like this every single week because, yeah, they got the one, the early goal and they defended for 85 minutes, but man, it's just not attractive soccer, and it's not even close. It's ugly. I didn't like it.
The things I'm hearing from the team, and I completely agree, they're pissed. Let's just put it that way. Robertson had some comments. I read them. I just kind of took the attitude from it. Sounds like Virgil's pretty frustrated as well. And that Mane's mad. And they're coming to Anfield in 3 weeks. So good luck. I have a feeling that there's going to be some sort of retribution, and it might be a humiliation if possible. But I think the guys are going to definitely be ready to play, and show up, and the fans are going to show up. I just know they will. Don't plan on it. If you do happen to have tickets to that match, show up and just go crazy. Sing all the songs, no matter where you're sitting, and cheer for us here in the States, since we can't be there.
You know what I would like to have happen, and it just came to me, and so it might be a stupid idea. Simeone was going berserk about how great their reception for their bus was. Did you hear what he said about that? He called it the greatest reception he's ever seen at Athletico. He's been there for 8 years, and he's saying that for a round of 16 first leg knockout match, their fans finally did something he's never seen before, and it was the best ever. That's embarrassing.
They've been to finals?
They've been to finals. Yeah, it's embarrassing. So maybe he was just trying to, like I said, hype them up like he was doing all freaking damn game. But I would love if this happened at Anfield, and I know it won't, but we beat their ass anyway, which we certainly can. 2-0 puts us through. But what if – I'm laughing, think about it. What if their entire bus route to the stadium, nobody showed up from a Liverpool supporter? They just drove into completely empty, silent streets. People just sitting there reading papers and sitting on their stoops and just walking down the street or whatever. Nobody even acknowledged that their bus was even going by, and then they go into Anfield and we just beat their asses 4-0 or something. Wow. I think that would be absolutely hilarious, and that would just be shown around the world. Here's their bus coming in. Nobody in the street is even paying attention to them because the streets are empty. I think that'd be classic.
The problem is that the streets will not be empty because they'll be waiting to welcome the Liverpool bus. So
yeah, that's true. But I'm just picturing a ghost town as their bus drives through, and they're thinking, yeah, we don't even care about this stupid bus of yours, and
better yet,
then we just go beat their asses.
Have them park their bus at across Stanley Park at Goodison, walk across Stanley Park, and no one just even acknowledges them. How great would that be?
That'd be hilarious. It won't happen that way because, like you said, the Liverpool bus, Liverpool bus comes through first, if I remember correctly. But anyway. So yeah, we have this tie. It's only halftime, as Klopp said. So there's another leg that still has to take place for sure. And Klopp's never lost a 2-legged European tie to any team since he got here, and we're still the favorites, even though we're 1-0 down. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yep. Thank you, Fortress Anfield. All right, moving on. This weekend, West Ham comes to Anfield Road. Brian, going to be a massacre, or do we know what to expect? I'm going to say we're going to win, but what are you thinking, man?
Well, I think we're going to win as well. It's I haven't really thought about the match that much. West Ham's down in 18th. on 24 points and negative 15 goal difference, and that's really all I've thought about them all year. So I can't say much about their form. They haven't really been lighting it up or anything like that. So I think there's no doubt we're going to win this game. I mean, nobody's beat us yet in this league. So West Ham lost 2-0 to City today, and they drew with Brighton before that.
City were down to 9 men.
And they lost to us, 2-0 a couple matches ago. So, and then they lost to Leicester before that. So they're not exactly tearing it up.
David Moyes is the coach, and I wish he would do what he did today to play Manchester City. I don't know if he did this to spite us or what, but best player sitting on the bench. I just don't get it. So yeah.
I didn't even see that. So yeah, what happened? He benched somebody?
No, he didn't bench him. Just didn't play him.
Isn't that benching them? What do you mean?
Well, I guess, but I mean, I don't know if they were fit or not. But Felipe Anderson's on the bench. Valencia was on the bench. A few other guys. I just saw it going through Twitter when I was scrolling through, and I thought I also saw that Ederson got sent off early in the match, and I gave up a pen. They missed the pen, and so City played with 10 men and won 2-0. So, yeah.
Well, I'd argue that Declan Rice is one of their good players. He played 90 today, but you're right. Anderson was on the bench and didn't play at all. So Zabaleta came on and played a half an hour.
Zabaleta.
But they usually play 5 at the back, and that's probably what they'll do against us as well. So.
We'll see.
Yeah, they're in the relegation zone for a reason. They give up a lot of goals and they don't score a ton. So
Moyes always gives us a game, though. That's the only thing. It sucks.
Yeah, screw him. He's never faced a team like this ever. I mean, I know we played him a couple games ago, but then beat him 2-0. They have not won a game since January 1st. That's the last time West Ham won a game. So we'll win.
All right, fair. I'm counting on it. Still looking at Crystal Palace, the 21st of March. As a clinching, but I think now it's time for Timo Werner update. Brian, have you heard anything lately about Timo Werner? I've got some stuff. I didn't throw this in the timeline, but I kind of wanted to throw some stuff out.
So here, I'm probably the if there's a graph that looks at or a chart or a Venn diagram or whatever you want to use. It's probably a line graph would do this, or a bar graph. The length of fandom for this club, which mine is, pretty long, and that's cool. But the amount of interest you have in transfer rumors and transfers in general, transfer windows, and compared to one's fandom length, I might have the biggest disparity on the planet, at least maybe in the United States. I took like 10 minutes away from my desk today after a busy day, or during a busy day, stepped out, grabbed a beverage and just, reset for a few minutes, right? And I saw a interview with Timo Werner, and the guy asked him about Liverpool.
Yep.
And he started giving like a 4 or 5 word answer, and he's like, "Oh, well, they're the best." And I stopped. I didn't even watch the rest of it. Not that I wouldn't like to have the guy. I think he's fantastic. I would love to have him, but I'm just not caught up in the whole. Sometimes I get mad at myself for not being caught up in this whole transfer thing, because it probably would be a lot of fun to follow and dig in and look and look for little cues. And I didn't even watch Werner's answer. So, what's the latest, Joe? I know you want him as probably as much as I do, if not more. Tell us what's going on with Timo.
He's a fantastic player. It really is. Scored a great winner today against Tottenham Hotspur in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But yeah, so apparently there are reports coming out that he has to agree the release clause has he has a really very, very, for a player of his caliber, low release clause.
Yes, very affordable. Yep.
And it expires in April. So you have to sign Timo Werner in March, or before March, end of March, I guess, for this to take effect.
And when you say sign, it's just coming to an agreement for a summer move and getting pen to paper, etc. I mean, there is no signing because the window is closed, but it's making arrangements. A lot like we did for Naby to come. We made those arrangements really in the wintertime for him to come in the summer, kind of thing. So
Yeah. So
so when we say sign, it's not official signing. But sorry, but go ahead.
A player personal terms agreed. You've released the whatever, the release clause, all of that. Bayern apparently are not in the game anymore, and so there's a lot of people thinking that it's writing's on the wall that Timo Werner is coming. And like you said, that was what I was going to break with. Was like you said that they flat out asked Timo Werner about the Liverpool rumors. He's very flattered, but doesn't really tip his card anyway or the other.
That's good.
Smart.
I mean, that's a better answer than something else he could give. That
yeah,
he doesn't want to go anywhere. Whether that's right or wrong, you don't want to hear that. So
Nagelsmann's doing some good things at Leipzig. I think they could actually probably win the league. I think they're only 1 point back from Munich, and Dortmund's close too. So I don't know. There's still a lot of season left. If it's that tight, I'm cheering for Leipzig in the Bundesliga.
That'd be interesting. I mean, they're kind of a controversial club for people that have followed the Bundesliga for a long time, or the few folks we know that are from Germany that are now over here hanging out in Indy. They've kind of, they're a bit of a kind of a Chelsea City type, not quite that amount of money, but have in some ways kind of bought their way through the divisions and, aren't super popular outside of Leipzig, I don't think. But what they're doing is interesting. They're good.
Red Bull came in and injected funds like you wouldn't believe.
Sure.
But I think don't quote me on this, but they're one of the few, if only, former East German teams that are in the first Bundesliga.
Yeah, there's not a ton, that's for sure.
There's
a couple others that have bounced up and down. I think there's one other in the Bundesliga this year, and I can't recall, but I had a exchange student down the street a couple of years ago that was from a small town in former East Germany, so she was shocked that I even knew what the Bundesliga was, and then which clubs were from East Germany, and she just kind of looked at me like I was from Mars. But that was kind of fun. But
it's just anyway, it is what it is. Okay, so moving on, like I mentioned earlier, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Manchester City and how they are cheaters. So first, we're going to state we are not international.
You mean Manchester City?
There you go. First, I'm going to say we are not international sports lawyers. Jim, who was scheduled to be on the pod, is our legal expert, and we know many other lawyers. However, they know very little about international sports. So it came out Friday afternoon that UEFA had found Manchester City guilty of lying on financial statements and breaching financial fair play. They were handed a 2-year European ban and fined £30 million. So I'm going to break it down for you. I'm not an expert on understanding all this stuff, but this is kind of my understanding of how everything went. So essentially, Manchester City lied about where the money came from on their financial documents. An example would be their stadium naming deal. So I don't have the figures, so don't quote me on this. But let's say that they announced that the naming rights were for £300 million on their financial statements. However, the emails that were stolen and then leaked were that the £3 million was the actual amount, and the rest of the money was coming from the owner, Sheikh Mansour, of Manchester City. So my understanding of financial fair play is that while the owners are allowed to put money into the club, financial fair play requires that it has to balance out, and I believe that it's over a few years. So, like for instance, Sheikh Mansour could have put in that $300 million into the club, but they have to balance it out through sponsorships, ticket sales, and player sales as well. So that's how it kind of works. This didn't really happen in actuality. They lied about it, and they are being punished. So City are appealing, and here's the interesting thing to me, Brian. The club have not refuted that they lied on the documents. They are instead arguing that the process wasn't fair and that since the leaked emails were obtained illegally, that they should not have been allowed to be used as evidence. So it's going to an independent appeal group who will look at the case and decide the fairness. Now, Brian, you have something you wanted to share here. Go ahead.
Well, it's You're right that City, you're saying some interesting things here, but one thing I read is a statement that they did make that they're claiming that the people that were making the decision here for this 2-year ban and the fine that you mentioned, weren't necessarily reviewing all the information. They weren't giving, cities opposition to some documents or the statements they're making or explanations. They weren't giving them, the time or the weight that city believes that they should be given. And, city kind of feels hard done by from the very beginning, as though people deciding this had kind of decided from the beginning. So their statement actually, I'm going to paraphrase here, was looking forward to having the case reviewed on appeal in what they considered like an unbiased or a fair arena than what's been used so far. So there could be some truth to that. I don't know. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. But it kind of sounds like their appeal is kind of thinly veiled that, hey, you shouldn't have this information anyway, and they had already decided what was wrong and didn't really, do a good job. So let's, you should look at this arbitrarily, and we should win our appeal. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know that argument will hold up. But, you described the FFP well, and I think we should add that, there's not a straight dollar limit for all teams of, X number of dollars can be spent on players. The way I, understand it, again, it's limited in scope, is that you're allowed to spend a certain percentage of your revenue. So revenue being, stadium naming rights, shirt sales, how much are you selling, food for, and all the ticket sales, all those types of things, TV rights, all the revenue coming into the club, you're allowed to spend a certain percentage of that on players. So Fulham, can spend 105%, and so can Manchester City. Well, and that is spread out over a couple of years, so that keeps a club from going crazy like City has. It's a percentage of your revenue, if I understand correctly. So it's complicated. It's interesting, and City are claiming that it wasn't fair all along. So we'll see what happens.
Brian, I think they're shaking in their boots big time, and I think there's going to be a lot of repercussions. We'll talk about that later. But they did you see the video of their lawyers showing up? And then their plastic fans
like a big full table of them, right? A whole bunch of them?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Why do you need that many lawyers, first of all? And second of all, unless it's an intimidation tactic, which might work.
Yeah, probably what it
is. Who
knows?
They're just going to throw a bunch of money under the table, and they'll be like, oh, okay, no ban. But they also said stuff like, well, if you think we're the only ones doing this, then we're going to tell you need to look at PSG and all this other stuff. So this is going to be crazy. Luckily, I'm glad I'm a fan of Liverpool Football Club because I have total faith in John Henry and Michael Edwards and Peter Moore, whoever's running the club, that they are doing things the right way. And we know they are because we haven't bought any players in how many years, and we sold Philippe Coutinho, and we're getting this brand new shirt sponsor deal. All these things,
a unique shirt sponsor deal with a structure that the sport hasn't seen before.
Yeah,
at least not at this level. So it's you're right. I mean, we did spend a lot of money on Alisson and Van Dijk, but we also made a profit of $140 million on Coutinho. So
yep, exactly.
If we hadn't sold Coutinho, and or he went on a free or something stupid like that, and then we spent $140 million on Van Dijk and Alisson. Well, now the ledger or the Excel spreadsheet will look a lot different. It might look a little bit more like City's, but we're not in that situation, thankfully.
All right, so let's talk about a little bit of the potential fallout if it's upheld. So 5th place in the league, if City remain in the top 4, will qualify for the Champions League. So currently, the Spurs, now without Harry Kane or Son, are in 5th place. Sheffield United is in 6th, only 1 point back from Spurs. Manure is 3 points back of Spurs, and Wolves and the Ev are 5 points back. All amounts that could happen with the rest of the season, especially Spurs, I think, has potential to fall pretty hard, especially without Harry Kane or Son for the rest of the season, it sounds like.
Son broke his arm, if you hadn't heard.
Yep.
and might be out for the year, which is kind of strange
Yeah, he
for
had to
a
have
broken arm. I
surgery.
mean, I know it's, you can't play with a broken arm, but I don't know. Anyway,
Surgery.
it's going to be interesting. Fifth place might get in.
Yep, fifth place. If it's upheld, we'll say it will. So now there's something to fight for, as Europa League kind of at a time can be a burden more than it is a benefit. So Brian, who would you like to get fifth and qualify from that group above?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, right now Spurs are in fifth, and Sheffield United, Wolves, and Everton are all kind of within striking distance. All those teams are within 4 points of fifth. It's crazy to think about, Sheffield and Wolves and Everton, going for the Champions League. It'd be very interesting to see Sheffield do it. A lot of people picked Sheffield to go right back down again. They have the lowest wage bill in the Premier League, and they are right now 1 point out of a Champions League spot. Remarkable. It's the Cinderella story is them to somehow pull this off and go play in the Champions League. That would be really cool to see. But I to be honest, I just don't want it to be United. I don't really care who else it is among that. I'd rather have Everton shock the world and do it than United, to be quite honest with you. And ideally, if I could pick, I'd pick Sheffield go in there, Spurs drop down to sixth, Everton and Wolves pass up United, which moves United on down to ninth. And, we go from there. I think that would be perfect if you're allowing me to pull out my crystal ball and move some teams around and make it work. So are you with me? Are you Sheffield at the top of your list, or do you got one of those other clubs?
Yeah, Sheffield's top of my list. Chris Wilder has done a fantastic job. I think Jurgen Klopp should be manager of the year. But I really would. I wish that they would do a co-manager of the year so that Chris Wilder could get some recognition for what he's done. Especially that's as it is. If they qualify for Europe at all, holy cow, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's something about that Sheffield team. I kind of like them. They're a little plucky, and I think, but Brian, I think they owe a lot of it to Dean Henderson. Hopefully, they're able to purchase him off of Manchester United. How kind of funny is that going to be? Dean Henderson, Manchester United player, finishes above Manchester United on loan.
That would be funny.
Oh man, I'm already looking for that.
You not to talk about United very much, other than to make fun of them, but I generally want to talk about their fixture list coming up. They've got a tough run. They play Watford next, which they should win. But then their next matches after that are against Everton, who are right there with them. Then they play City.
Yep.
Then they play Spurs. Then they play Sheffield.
Oh, wow.
So if they get through that stretch of 5 matches, which takes them into that takes them all the way through March, those 5 matches I mentioned right there, Watford, Everton, City, Spurs, and Sheffield. If they get through that and they're still in the position and they're in, within, a few points from fifth, they'll probably end up in fifth, because their run it after that is not difficult. Brighton, Bournemouth, Villa, Southampton, Palace, and West Ham. They finish at Leicester, but these next 5 matches are going to.
They're going to do it. They're going to mean it. Yeah.
That's going to determine whether they can pull it off or not. So hopefully they don't, and they fall flat on their face. And I renew my subscription to the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer Forever Fund. I mean, I donate every week to keep him in that job, because it's. Just walk to work once a day, everybody, and take that money you'd spend on gasoline and send it over to the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer Forever Fund over there in England. It's worth it.
All right, Brian. So another thing about the fallout that we could possibly see is Pep Guardiola. I mean, our initial reaction when the news broke, I mean, you, Jim, and I on our little group text, Pep's gone. But he's saying they had a meeting, I guess, sometime over the weekend or on Monday, and they're saying, "Hey, Pep says that he's staying no matter what," and someone at the club, I forget his title or whatever, but he was saying, "Have faith in me, like I have faith in you. We're gonna get this right." But we're also hearing that if the appeal is upheld, that all the players have a clause in their contract that they will be able to terminate their contracts.
Well, I think that's just a rumor at this point. Has that been
I don't
substantiated?
know. I think it's a rumor.
Yeah,
but I still want to talk
I think
about
it might be as well. But there are some clauses, or I've heard about clauses in players' contracts for clubs that aren't nearly as successful as City has been recently, that say, if a club is relegated, they're released from the contract, or there's a certain buyout. Not necessarily like a regular buyout clause, but if a team's relegated, you can buy a player for X, Y, or Z, or those kind of things are real. Now, I don't know if that would ever be a part of a Manchester City players' contract, because they haven't been near relegation for a long time, and they've been winning this league. So, but whether there's other stipulations in the contract that indicate, if they don't make Europe, or if they're banned from Europe, I can't imagine being banned from Europe or being forced to be relegated by the FA, that would be in a contract. But like we said, I'm no contractual expert, no lawyer, but it's going to be interesting. It's a mess. I mean, Pep is saying what he's saying. I can't imagine him saying anything else other than he's going to stay right now. I don't know if I believe him, but I wouldn't believe anything the players are saying right now. I'm not believing a whole lot what the club is saying. It's a complete mess, and we'll just see what happens, I guess.
Who would you expect to leave? I'll start. Sane's definitely leaving already.
Yeah, he wants to go back home to Germany. There's talk of Bayern trying to get him, I believe.
Yeah, they were going to.
Yeah, he'll be gone anyway. He's there at Milana. Older, a little bit past it, not getting a ton of playing time. Wants one more moment in the sun. Good luck to you.
Sane's young and injured.
Sane?
Yeah, Leroy Sané.
He's not that young.
Yeah, he is.
No, he's not.
I'm going to look it up. I might be mistaken.
Go ahead, look it up.
Kevin De Bruyne, he's gone. He's late.
He's 28 and a half.
Yeah, 28 and a half. He's getting close to that 30 mark. He'll be gone. I'm thinking
Sane's not 25 yet.
He's 24. Ha! Anyway, I think Sterling leaves, but probably for the continent. I don't know if anybody in England wants him or would pay for him. What Manchester City would want.
Sheffield maybe.
I'm thinking continental Europe, maybe Spain. Italy's been buying English players. I guess I'm going to Italy. Laporta, would you take Laporta, Brian?
I don't want any of their defenders. No.
Okay.
No. I mean, Laporte's, he's not 26 yet. I mean, he's not bad.
All right.
He's not bad. Maybe he could, fill Lovren's boots and be a sub, I guess. But
I think Kun Aguero stays unless he goes back to Argentina.
Aguero?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll stay. I think he'll be the first one out.
Really?
Or among the first ones out. Yeah, I mean he's definitely older. He's going to be 32 here real soon. He doesn't want to play in a lower division.
I don't think
and doesn't want to not play in Europe.
I don't think they'll. Yeah, I think he'd accept it for the money. That's me.
Mahrez back to Leicester, maybe.
No, Manchester United will buy him.
Sorry,
Manchester United will buy him. Play him as striker.
Actually, they'll buy him and then they'll pay him $300,000 to go play for somebody else, like they're doing with Sanchez right now.
There you go.
£300,000 a week. Scott Carson's on their bench, so you can pick him up.
Hey, there you go.
As a backup goalkeeper for your U40 team.
So Scott Carson, I have a story about Scott Carson. I don't know if I ever told you. He was the backup keeper at Liverpool Football Club, right? When we won in Istanbul. And 2 weeks later, they played the English team played a friendly against the United States in Soldier Field. I got tickets probably through Sam's Army at the time, right by the tunnel, great seats. And I geek out as Scott Carson walks out of the tunnel, and he looks at me like, "What? Somebody knows who I am?"
That's funny.
Yeah, it was great. All right, so moving on. Further information: apparently, that the Premier League and the FA are also looking at the situation with Manchester City. Personally, I feel like they're just going to be waiting to see what CAS says. That's the something sports, arbitration of sports group.
Yeah, Court for Arbitration of Sports, or the
something like that.
City asshole. Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Reports coming out over the weekend, Brian, that if they are found guilty in the league, they could be docked points each season from 2012 to 2016, which is when they were lying about this. So if so, Liverpool could win 2 titles this season, 2013 and 2014, as well as this year, 2019-2020. If this happens, how do you...
What about last year? They were not lying last year?
Yeah, apparently they weren't. They brought it up last year. So... or maybe their revenue last year was enough to cover their expenditures and they're not out of bounds or what have you. Yeah,
so
I don't know.
Anyway,
details.
There's talk of adjusting past league tables.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So how do you want this to be awarded if it happens? But I'm going to start. Okay. So first of all, I'd love to see Steven Gerrard have a league title. But this whole thing kind of feels weird to me. I'm not sure how I feel about a retrospective points deduction. Maybe Brian have an asterisk, kind of like Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa do for home run records in American baseball. While Manchester City did cheat, yes, but they still put together a 100-point season. They still showed up and beat Liverpool by 1 game. They were the better team last year. They're probably the better team in 13-14 as well. Did they cheat? Yes, but I think it would feel tarnished if they went back and then awarded the titles to teams. I mean, they start with Manchester United would have 1 more title because of the whole Kun Aguero game winner or goal differential winner over Manchester United, and I think it was 2012 is in there too.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That really late, 2 stoppage time goals, and City win their first league title or their first Premier League title. I mean, they won the league years ago, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me. But anyway, if they do, I'm going to be all on board for it, and I'm going to be celebrating with everybody else. I think that what we should do is we should have a celebration on March 21st to win the league. We'll have a parade later, but it's going to be at home to Crystal Palace. And I think that's when we should get the trophy, have a big ceremony. Jordan Henderson does this fun dance and then lifts it. However, in the Palace game, lift the 20. Which one was it? Be 2014?
No. This is the 2019-2020 trophy because we're going to win it then.
But you don't get it. No, we will not touch that trophy until the last home game of the year, even if you clinch it against Palace.
Okay, fair. Anyway,
and that's when our friends Boback and Zach are going to be at Anfield. They're going to see this.
Okay,
that's when the trophy for this year's league victory will come out, and that's the last home game we have, and that's against Chelsea. So even if we clinch it against Palace, there will be no trophy that day, no dance, no nothing.
Oh, well, fine. Well, there goes that idea, because mine was going to be that if it was in time, the adjudication as well as the as the bans and all that stuff go into effect. If time, the last home game of the season, then you bring everybody back, bring Steven Gerrard back, bring Luis Suarez back, bring Martin Skirtle back, and Steven Gerrard gets to lift the trophy at Anfield. Heck, throw him in a Nike kit. I don't care. Actually, no, they should. They should bring, because I think we'll still have new Balance sponsorship. They should put in that 13-14 kit and lift the trophy. Anybody that was on that team needs to be there lifting it.
Sturridge and all those guys.
Yep. I don't even care. Bring back the Braj. Let him do it. I don't care.
Flanagan?
Ooh, Brian. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You have to. You have to, though.
No, you don't.
Okay, well, maybe
you don't have to.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
He's busy. I mean, some of these guys are going to be, playing other places and not necessarily be available for your little party that you're planning.
Suarez is out for the season. Scottish League's, I think, over before ours is. If not, then the first home game of the season. That'd be kind of a fun way to start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, not bad.
Okay, what are you thinking? Go ahead.
Well, I'm not really sure what to think. I don't want anything to overshadow what this team has accomplished and the moment where this trophy is going to be presented at the last home game against Chelsea. And good friends of ours at Anfield that day, and that. I mean, this is so absurd. Supporters have been waiting for this for 30 years. I've been watching for 25, right?
Yep.
We're actually trying to pick and choose what day we want it to happen now. I mean, it's just when I still haven't completely wrapped my mind around that. I don't want anything to happen with any, titles awarded kind of retroactively that's going to do anything at all to interfere with what's being accomplished this year. So there is history of titles that what they call vacated. I mean, it's happened in American college sports. It's happened in American college soccer, where teams were, mishandling things or player eligibility or what have you, and it just says, that they won the title, and it just says vacated, and that's happened before. So, and I think that's happened in some European football leagues as well. But I don't. It's nice to think about another bus on the parade full of the 2014 guys, or it's nice to think about them lifting a trophy at a packed Anfield. And your idea of next year might be a good one. I wouldn't be shocked if the club, if they are awarded this 2014 trophy, if they don't do anything at all, just put it in the case. There's no ceremony. You change the number on the wall and you put the trophy in the case and you get on down the road, and that's it. And there isn't a big ceremony. I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that either. I know there's the Gerard angle, and I'm probably pissing some people off, but I don't want to provide asshole rival fans with any type of ammunition to, they were singing the stupid Slip song for 10 years after he left, right?
Yep.
So, I just put the trophy in the trophy case and get on down the road. Interview them, add it to their books, whatever you want to do. But I don't know that I need a big ceremony. I want the big ceremony to be for this team.
Yep, fair enough. All right, so final comment.
But I
Bryan.
like your idea next year.
All right.
That's a good one.
All right, final comment, Bryan. All these salty City fans who have started hashtags of tainted title and Liverpool need to shut the fuck up. This title is not tainted. All the ones that you have are tainted. Karma is a bitch. Go back to being a Chelsea fan. All right, Bryan, let's start wrapping it up. Plugs, non-plugs. I'm going to start with you.
Oh, I'm going to give you a double plug tonight. One is a team here in the United States in the USL League, which is basically the second division or the second tier. Look up FC Cincinnati, a giant mess going on right now, and actually they went up to MLS. Excuse me. So a big mess at FC Cincinnati. I'm just going to leave it at that. Look that up. Another non-plug is, I should have called this a double non-plug. If I said double plug, I was wrong. This is double non-plug. So FC Cincinnati. The other one is Atletico's president, Enrique Cerezo, I believe is the guy's name, complaining that Anfield is old and falling apart and wouldn't pass a UEFA inspection. I mean, what an idiot. Just thank you for providing a more, locker room motivation and bulletin board material for this team. I hope we absolutely smash them in the return leg. The president came out today or yesterday saying Anfield's basically a dump. I mean, it's one of the premier sports stadiums in the world, and it's just, this guy's an idiot. So double non-plug there. Yes. What do you got, Joe?
Screw him. The only reason they got one is because they had enough seats. I mean, seriously.
Well, hell, we've won more trophies at their stadium than they have.
Fair enough. All right. You know what? Plug is my wife's planning a great vacation. She's thinking of things I haven't even thought about. But I've got a vacation coming up a week from today. I'll be on vacation. Bought a book, Bryan. Bought a book I'm really happy to buy for vacation read. How to be
I'm proud of you. You're going to start reading.
Hey, there's a first time for everything. How to Be a Footballer by James Milner. I've read the introduction. It's fabulous. We're trying to get him on the podcast. Seriously, I'm gonna keep tweeting him. See if I can get his representation.
Trying to get Milner or trying to get Pierce?
James Milner.
Okay. And forgive me, did Pierce write this for him or did Milner write it?
This is Milner. Milner did it himself.
I thought you were tweeting at Pierce, so forgive me. I messed that up.
Nope, it's James Milner. So get him or his representation on to talk about the book. It'd be great. So if you have a way that we might be able to do this, let me know.
Sounds good.
We'll only talk about the book. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to say that. But yeah, I'm very looking forward to this. I'm going to pass it around to Bryan and Jim for sure after I get back. If you want it after them, let me know. And we'll work something out. So, yeah, pretty
awesome.
excited. Non-plug is that I still got a week until vacation.
It's going to be a long week. It always is.
God. Yeah, exactly. A lot of stuff going on too. So, all right. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this podcast. Thank you so much. If it's your first time listening, hope you really enjoyed it. Hope you appreciate the hotakes that Bryan and I were throwing at you. If you want to get a hold of us, our contact information is going to be in the pod notes. This is Joe Dilling signing off for episode 109 of the Indie Reds podcast. You'll never walk alone.